Hi, I'm Dr. David Nowell, clinical neuropsychologist. Several days ago, my colleague Dr. Lynn Kinney and I decided to create some content while people are stuck at home during this time. Dr. Kinney and I are both speakers with PESI. We do workshops around the country on the topic of executive functioning. Not surprisingly, a lot of our workshops have been canceled. If you do like this content, you can check out one of my live webinars or a pre-recorded webinar for continuing education credit at PESI. If you're in Australia watching this, if all goes to plan, I hope to be there with you through Tatra in October. So you can check out that schedule at tatra.com. I spoke in a previous video about the capacity to extend our will through time. I want to go deeper into that now. The art of extending our will through time, actually bilocating in time. Long before there was hashtag YOLO, there was hashtag if it feels good, do it, which sounds like the apotheosis of wanton hedonism. But I actually think this may be the highest moral dictum for any well-developed adult. The ability to inquire deeply into what feels good, sustainably good, given my relationships and my values and what I want for my future self, what would feel good? And then to have the courage to do it. As I mentioned in a previous video, it's not enough to know what would feel good for me right now. I also have to imagine a future version of myself, a separate self to which I'm obligated. And again, philosopher Robert Grudem calls this the art of extending our will through time. To imagine this future version of me, my health goals, academic, athletic, relational goals. What do I want for myself in the future? And then to organize my current activities around that future goal. A lot of my clients with attentional challenges and executive dysfunction know full well what would feel good. In fact, some of them tell me that they have a second bedroom they call the craft room, which is full of abandoned projects. They identified things that were good. They have a surfeit of enthusiasm. They know a good idea when they see it, but then for lots of different reasons, they have trouble doing it, sticking with it, the hard parts, the yucky parts, the boring parts, especially when there's obstacles, including social obstacles. I want to share with you a couple of strategies for bilocating in time. The ability to actually extend into time in support of this future version for ourselves. Pre-commitment is one of those, and the other one is implementation intention. So let's look at those in a bit more detail. Pre-commitment means to determine right now what I want for my future self. Spend some time thinking about it with your journal, with a loved one, with a counselor. When an ADHD coach successfully convinces their client that physical exercise will make them think better, feel better, focus better, and the client says, "You've sold me. I'm going to swing by the house after work and pick up my gym bag." That's great, but let me just point out that nobody in the history of humankind has ever swung by the house and picked up a gym bag. That's not a thing. Pre-commitment means putting your gym bag in the car in the morning. In the morning, thinking about what I want for my 5:30 self. Pre-commitment is leaving the credit cards at home and taking $60 in cash to the casino. Pre-commitment is planning on a Sunday what you're going to eat for the entire week. Your meals, your snacks, and then shoving your refrigerator full of all this stuff. It takes a lot of work. It's not easy. Who do I want to be next Thursday, next Friday? What snacks do I want to eat next Wednesday? Pre-commitment means paying in advance for 8 sessions with a trainer. When you look at this slide, do you even remember what it was like to touch other people's clipboards and to be that close to a stranger? Yuck. All right, the second way to project into the future is implementation intention. Dr. Catherine Milkman and her colleagues at the Wharton School used implementation intentions to increase flu vaccination rates in an organization. So here's how the study worked. One group of employees received an email that said, "Hey, free flu shot clinic, here's the dates." A second group of employees was asked to sign up for a date. And then a third group of employees was asked to sign up for a date and a time. Can you guess which group was more likely to follow through and actually get the flu shot? If you guess the third group, you're right. The reason this works is that when you get specific, will you do a thing? Where will you do it? When will you do a thing? What will you wear? Do you need somebody's help? It actually makes you think in advance of how you'll do that. It's sort of like in sports psychology. When you work through your golf swing, or you imagine the heft of a baseball bat in your hands, or you see a cheerleader who is standing in line sort of bored and working through their routines, or a pianist who reaches out to the bare table and practices a piano drills. This is laying down pathways so later you're able to do the real thing. So I know what's going to happen. I've got a lacrosse game tomorrow. I don't get home until 8 o'clock. I want to use my study hall tomorrow to finish my homework, but I know what's going to happen. I'm going to go into study hall tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and my buddies are going to say, let's fold a piece of paper into a triangle and thump it back and forth for 45 minutes. So you're saying that you know what you want for yourself? Yes. There's a future vision of you not staying up late doing homework tomorrow night? Yes. And you know what some of the likely obstacles will be? Yes. So let's go ahead and do an implementation intention script. Here's what that would look like. Let's imagine that it's already tomorrow and you're walking into the study hall. Let's write it out in advance what you want your future self to do. And let's be super specific. When I sit down in study hall, I'll count 1 to 5 on my left hand while I greet the other students. Hey, Tyler. Hey, Skylar. Hey, Preston. And then I'll review my assignments, holding the paper in my right hand, hovering above the table, and then I'll start the assignments in the order I had those classes over the day. I'll do algebra, then Spanish, then life science. Notice how specific we're being here. I'll do this with my left hand and this with my right hand. Literally imagine yourself tomorrow doing these things. Again, thinking like a sports psychologist, working through your golf swing specifically. And why do you think that I would say, let's do the assignments in the order you had those classes over the course of the day? Why wouldn't I say, tomorrow at 2 o'clock, just do the assignments you feel like doing? The answer, of course, is a terrible question to ask, what do I feel like doing? I'm never going to feel like doing these assignments. Let's go ahead and determine what I want from my future self, and let's play it out specifically. All right? Let's travel in time. It's tomorrow, 2 o'clock. We walk into study hall. What do we say we're going to do? We sit down, and with our left hand, we count to 5. Hey, Tyler. Hey, Skylar. Hey, Preston. With our right hand, we hold the assignments, reviewing them visually, and then we work through the assignments in the order that we had them. Another way to do implementation intention is to create a PowerPoint storyboard. This is something I've talked about in my workshops. I think I'll save this for another video. It's a great intervention. It just takes a chunk of time. I think we'll make that a separate piece of work. My hero when it comes to all of this is Odysseus. He's a character from Greek mythology who, like a lot of us, had a split within him. On the one hand, he loved doing his job. His job was to get his boat across the sea. On the other hand, he loved the option, if he felt like it, to hear the song of the sirens. The sirens were half bird, half woman creatures with beautiful singing voices like you've never, oh, P.S., they lived near the shallow rocks, and when you got too close, you probably died. But again, beautiful singing voices. So this morning, Odysseus got up and he did some journaling. The first thing he wrote was, what would feel good? What comes to mind? Smoke all the cigarettes. And then he writes, what would feel deeply, sustainably good? And he writes, to breathe healthy, deep, into my 80s. Then he does it again. What would feel good? The first thing that comes to mind, to punch Charlie in the nose. I mean, that would feel good. And then he writes, what would feel deeply, sustainably good? As he reflects on that, he thinks, although it would feel good to punch Charlie in the nose, what would feel deeply good is to think about my future reputation, getting along with people, living in harmony with my coworkers and my friends. Then he does it again. What would feel good? To have the option, if I feel like it, to hear the song of the sirens. Because again, those creatures can sing. And then he writes, what would feel deeply, sustainably good? And he realizes, what would really feel good is to do his job. He loves when he gets there a bit early, and there on the shore, they're waving the red rags, and they say, Odie! That's what they call him. So this morning, you know what he did? This morning, he went ahead and tied himself to the mast, so he couldn't even change his mind at the last minute. And he put wax in his sailors' ears, so they couldn't even hear the tempting call of the sirens. And he set his boat across the sea. That's what makes him my mindfulness hero. He determined in advance, he implemented his intention. He decided, if I only live once, what would feel deeply, sustainably good? He thought about it, he reflected on that, and then he asked the deeper question, what would feel sustainably good? And then, like a hero, he did it. He thought of his future self. He imagined arriving there early, and they're waving the red rags and saying, Odie. And he organized his current behavior around that. So my challenge to you is to think what would feel deeply, sustainably good for you. Spend some time journaling, talking to people, and make sure you ask that second question. Given my values, given my relationships, and what I want for my future self, what will feel deeply, sustainably good? And then see if you can do it. What skills and talents and unearned gifts would allow you to get there? You're tall, you're smart, you're good looking, you've got great friends. And then what will be the challenges and limitations? Who in your social circle would support you in this? And who would be negative? And then begin to think how you could work around these obstacles.